This is Retirement Keys with Anthony Congemi from Crescent City Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Anthony provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Retirement Keys with your host, Anthony Congemi.
All right. Well, welcome to another show of Retirement Keys. My name's Anthony Congemi with Crescent City Retirement Group. And we have our fabulous co-host that we have every Sunday morning, Tony Shore. We really couldn't do the show without him. Tony, thank you so much for being here. How are you today, sir?
Oh, Anthony, the pleasure's all mine, and you definitely have a great show here. With or without me, it's awesome. And I love the information you share with our listeners each week about, staying financially healthy and learning what the keys to a successful retirement would be so they can plan on that. But yeah, I've had a great week. It's just been really, really busy. I'm up here in Minnesota right now, trying to get the leaves raked up before they're covered in snow. So that's fall for me. But how are things there for you? I got to get back down there.
Yeah, you really do, Tony. We just really enjoy having you when you come down to visit. And I guess it's getting a little chilly where you are, huh?
Yeah, it is. We've already had our first snow.
Okay.
Last night it got into the 20s. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man, that's not really our speed down here. But.
No. So here's the deal. Before we roll, I know sometimes we have questions from our listeners, and you get a lot of calls and questions from the listeners. If our listeners want to set up a complimentary consultation with you, or they have a question or a topic they want us to discuss on the show, how can they get a hold of you? What's that phone number and web address?
So it's crescentcityretirement.com, CRESCENT. So crescentcityretirement.com, or they can call our office at 504-828-2171. And I can tell you, Tony, a lot of the questions that are coming in from our listeners and from our clients as well is taxes. The questions are revolving around taxes and what type of tax planning they can do, as well as inflation. People are concerned about inflation and really taxes, Tony. So I would say, of course, that's not all the questions that come in, but I could say toward the end of the year like this, a lot of the questions are wrapped around those things, Tony. And we just welcome your questions. A lot of times there's things that you can be doing that you could take advantage of if you just have a second opinion. So by all means, 504-828-2171. Just give our office a call. Any questions, the lines are open for you. Call us, and we're happy to walk you through some of those planning ideas that so many are utilizing.
Yeah. And what's the web address there?
It is, Tony, Crescent. So www.crescentcityretirementgroup.com.
Yeah, that's right. crescentcityretirementgroup.com. So let's jump into today's show. Now, we call it the show is called Retirement Keys. And you've talked about it before on the show, but we do get listeners asking, what are the retirement keys? What are the main things that our listeners out there need to know, especially with inflation going crazy? And I know we're going to talk about the housing market on next week's show. We have a special guest. So I want to remind our listeners to make sure they tune into that show. That's going to be a good one. We're going to start having more special guests and experts in their fields on the show. But today, let's go over the basics, Anthony. Give us the retirement keys that you refer to. Just list those off, and then we'll talk a little bit about those.
Absolutely, Tony. So we really feel that there are 5 key areas to any sound retirement plan. And those areas, Tony, are, of course, estate and legacy planning, healthcare, investment strategies, income planning, and taxes. And I would just say that, in some form or fashion, and everybody's plan obviously is different, but in those five key areas, Tony, we all need an estate plan. We all need to know how our assets are going to pass on and to whom, and obviously in the most efficient manner. Healthcare planning, Tony, whether it be medical care, bridging the gap to Medicare or long-term care under healthcare. Then, of course, investment strategies, Tony. So we talk a lot about liquidity, income, and growth. We don't want to get those three ideas mixed up. So an investment strategy. Then, of course, income planning, as I mentioned. We're going to need some income in retirement, Tony. So how are we going to structure that income? And then finally, we want to be tax efficient. We need to be tax efficient in our distribution strategy. So those are the five keys, Tony, and we really feel very strongly about these five key areas.
Well, sure, and with inflation rearing its ugly head, a lot of people are concerned about that. So let's talk about that a little more. We mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. You talked about how inflation is increasing and what we need to be aware of. Also, we got some, in one sense, the good news is the Social Security, the government, the Social Security Administration has given us the recent news that the cost of living adjustment is set to rise, correct?
It is, Tony. And that's really, obviously a very strong indication of where we're headed with inflation. In 2021, the COLA, or the cost of living adjustments, was at 1.3%. And now, as you mentioned, in 2022, Tony, the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, is going to a staggering 5.9%. So what that's telling us, Tony, is that things obviously, and we already know this, but things are costing more money, right?
Right.
Things, inflation has reared its ugly head, and it doesn't seem like it's going to slow down anytime soon. So when you get into these retirement income planning and this distribution strategy, you have to have COLA or an adjustment to your income in retirement to offset inflation. Otherwise, as you know, Tony, you're on a fixed income in retirement, and that, of course, goes into the income planning portion of those five keys. But in the income planning, Tony, that's your structured income in retirement. But if your income in retirement is not keeping up with inflation, then, as you know, your purchasing power is diminishing, and obviously the quality of life will be diminishing if your structured income strategy doesn't keep up with inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why the government increases Social Security from time to time to try to help keep up with inflation. I want to note that it usually doesn't. Usually the increase is so small, it doesn't come close to covering the actual cost of living increases that inflation is bringing us. But 5.9% is a good increase in Social Security benefits for next year for people. So that's a good thing. But like you said, Social Security isn't enough. And with inflation on the rise, you're going to have to make adjustments to your retirement income. And if you have a plan in place, like your clients don't need to worry about this because you have a plan in place that takes into account inflation as one of the factors, correct?
Absolutely, Tony. Now, we'll say, and we talking about this 5.9% COLA increase in Social Security for 2022. But, frankly, Tony, that's been the highest increase since 1984.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's significant. It's a significant increase, and we haven't seen anything like this since 1984, this increase. And I might add, Tony, that when you look at a retirement income plan, Social Security typically is just a portion, right, of your overall income in retirement. Typically, people will be drawing, obviously, Social Security, but they may have a pension, whether it be a private pension or their own annuity or a government pension, but they'll have typically some type of pension, and then they have investments, Tony, that they're structuring in their retirement income plan as well. So even though the Social Security adjustment, this COLA adjustment for 2022 is at 5.9%, which is a pretty healthy increase, when you're living in retirement, you're not typically just drawing Social Security. You have other income sources.
Right.
And so the idea there is that all of those sources will keep up with inflation. So your purchasing power, your standard of living, and all of those things that we talk about, Tony, when we discuss inflation, we're maintaining those areas, because at the end of the day, Tony, we all know, I mean, everything costs more. You go to the grocery store today, go to the gas pumps, try to book some airline tickets and hotel rooms. I mean, Tony, inflation is all around us.
Yeah. Yeah. Rental car prices and car prices have just gone through the roof, Anthony. My wife recently traveled to see her father in Washington State, and the rental car alone was just astronomical. It was actually more than the plane ticket. But the plane tickets have gone up, and I've noticed hotel rooms have gone up. I had to go visit a college with my son, a grad school for medical school, and we had to get a hotel for the night, and I couldn't find anything less than $160 a night, or almost, with taxes, about $200 a night was the cheapest hotel, and that was in a small town in Iowa. So if that tells you anything, hotel prices have gone through the roof. Wood, lumber, everything. And, we could talk a little bit, Anthony, about what's causing some of these price increases, but we'll get more into that and more into retirement, funding your retirement and making sure you're covered for these increases after a quick break. Do you have anything you want to add before our break?
Well, I just want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. It's so nice seeing you as well when we do our live workshops. Invariably, so many of you that tune in to our radio show will come to one of our retirement workshops, and as you know, we do every month, Tony, and it's a full workshop on retirement planning and specifically on the 5 keys to a stress-free retirement. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in. And if you don't have a formal plan, or if you would like to get a second opinion on your retirement plan, by all means, give our office a call. I have a special offer I'd like to offer you, so please take advantage of that.
You've been listening to our shows and advice on getting your finances in order and creating a retirement income plan that will last. Now is the time to take advantage of our special offer. This is Anthony Kangemi of Crescent City Retirement Group, and we're now offering a complimentary gourmet dinner and retirement planning workshop, the 5 keys to a stress-free retirement. This is one workshop you won't want to miss. Call in the next 20 minutes for this no-cost offer. Seating is limited. Call Crescent City Retirement Group within the next 20 minutes at 504-828-2171. That number again is 504-828-2171.
And welcome back to the Retirement Keys with Anthony Kangemi. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. And Anthony, great show so far today. We're talking about the keys to retirement, the 5 keys to a stress-free retirement, as you always say, Anthony. And one is dealing with inflation. That's part of the whole plan. And we're talking about Social Security and how the cost of living adjustment for next year is the biggest since 1984. They're going to increase Social Security payments by 5.9%. And you said that's a jump from 1.3% last year. And I believe the year before it was about around that same amount, about 1.6%. So this is quite, it's a whopping 5.9% increase, and that's good, but we've been talking about inflation. Why the need for such a big increase? And, we see it in the news all the time. Right now, they're talking about supply chain problems, and I know initially some of this is being driven by COVID, too.
It is, Tony. So you really have kind of the perfect storm, if you will.
Sure.
You've got the COVID issue, which certainly affected this. And then, as you say, the supply chain, Tony. So, it's supply and demand. I mean, finance 101. If you have more demand and less supply, it's going to drive the cost of goods and services up. I just had a price on getting a wooden fence put up, Tony, and it's literally double what it was a year ago. Unfortunately, I didn't get it done a year ago, and we were just looking to see about getting that done. But again, Tony, the lumber cost and the labor cost, Tony.
Yeah.
So, it really is the supply and demand issue. And, at the end of the day, when you think about a retirement income plan, when we look at numbers, Tony, from an income planning perspective, we run these plans to age 100. So if a person retires, let's say at 65, right? We're running this distribution strategy for 35 years. We're running this plan to age 100. I mean, that's just our design. So what I'm getting at is over the next 30 or 35 or even 40 years of retirement, in most cases, that's a third of someone's life that they're going to spend in retirement. And if we don't have a distribution strategy, Tony, to take into account all sorts of things, right? Inflation being one of them, market volatility, income needs now and in the future, healthcare needs now and in the future. If these things aren't taken into account, then it's missing. It's missing some pieces, because let's face it, over the next 30 or 35 years of retirement, we're going to see all of those things, Tony. We're going to see market risk. We're going to see market volatility. We're going to see inflation and deflation. We're going to experience all of these movements in our financial markets. And if we don't have a plan flexible enough to absorb some of these happenings that are inevitably going to happen. I mean, it's almost like if somebody said, "Well, okay, I want to retire, and the market's gonna continue to climb for the next 35 years, and we're never going to have a pullback in the stock market." Well, I mean, obviously, that's not the case. So what I'm getting at is, instead of being so shocked when we have a market pullback, or we see the rise of inflation or deflation, or we have a healthcare cost or healthcare expenses that are very costly. Instead of being so shocked, we should just consider the fact that these are all things that we all are going to experience if we have a long retirement, which is the goal.
Yeah.
So why not just have those pieces in place, Tony, to be able to address these issues when they come up?
Yeah, important. And you're right. Well, if you have a plan in place, I think the main point you made there is, if you have a solid plan in place that addresses these things, then you don't have to worry about it. It's the SWAN plan, the SWAN plan, as you like to say, sleep well at night. Right? The sleep well at night plan. So you don't have to stress out over it. You can, markets will go up and down, inflation will come and go. And then if you have those 5 retirement keys in place and work with a financial services professional like yourself, then it takes away that stress and that worry.
Well, you would think, and it should, because at the end of the day, none of this that we're talking about is anything new.
Right.
I mean, there's, if you go back in the history of time, you can go back 100 years on the Dow Jones and look at a chart, and you're going to see all of the bull markets and the bear markets and how long it took for people to get back to even. I mean, you can look at inflation charts. You can look at volatility charts. Financial planners are great historians. I mean, we can tell you what happened yesterday.
Sure.
But what I'm saying, though, is if you have a plan in place, and you really do have your estate and legacy plan in order, your healthcare strategy and healthcare plan in order, you have a true investment strategy you have an income plan, a structured income plan that's got inflation built into it, and you have a good tax strategy. And of course, that changes from year to year, depending on the tax code. That's something else that's not going to be, it's more or less a moving target. But if you have these 5 keys in your plan, and then you're making those necessary adjustments from year to year, Tony, then you do have your bases covered.
Anthony, I know that we're talking about everything from inflation and the Social Security cost of living increase, the cost of living adjustment, or COLA as they call it. And, the Social Security, people just think, oh, I filed, don't need to worry about it. But it's tied in with your Medicare, so you got to look at that cost of living adjustment. So the fact that we know these things will happen, we just don't know exactly when, but you can plan for them because you know it's going to happen. But you have to work with a financial services professional like yourself. Otherwise, you don't want to try to go it alone. And talking about Social Security, you need to maximize your Social Security. A lot of people leave a lot of money on the table when it comes to their Social Security benefits too, don't they?
They sure do, Tony. And so when we are in our income planning session, we want to maximize Social Security. And so, as you know, we have a number crunching actuarial Social Security maximization report that we run. And it looks at everyone's age. It looks at life expectancy. It looks at how much each, especially for married couples, it looks at what this one put in and what that one put in, and the top 35-year earnings to get the PIA, the primary insurance amount. Everybody's, obviously age is different, so their full retirement age could be different. So it takes a lot into account. It looks at spousal benefits and survivor benefits and all of this, Tony. And it's not uncommon to run Social Security maximization reports and just look at comparing apples to apples life expectancy, and look at, from the worst strategy to, let's say, the best strategy, upwards of $100,000 to $150,000 of additional income that could have come out that doesn't, because you just didn't understand the different strategies and what was available. So in our income planning, Social Security maximization is a foundational piece, because we do want to maximize our Social Security strategy, of course, because every additional dollar we can draw out of Social Security, of course, is one less dollar that has to come from our retirement, our investments. So Social Security planning is big, Tony, as a foundational piece to your overall income plan. And then, as you mentioned, there's going to be income coming from investments. And so having those investments set up in a way for the distribution of the investments is so important. Let me mention briefly, because in the last segment, we talked about the last 2 workshops of the year, and the dates are November the 30th at Keith Young's restaurant in Madisonville, 165 Highway 21. Great steakhouse, incidentally. November the 30th at 6 p.m. And then there's another workshop on December the 2nd at Keith Young. So it's a Tuesday and a Thursday night in Madisonville. So if you're on the North Shore especially, by all means, and you're listening, give our office a call and tell them you heard Anthony and Tony on the radio and that you'd like to come to one of our retirement workshops. We have these 2. That'll be the closeout of 2021. But I promise you it'll be a very educational event. We only talk for about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. We really lay out all of the material. You leave with a full, planning packet that spells out very clearly what we think are very important as it relates to retirement planning. And as we've said through the show, there's really 5 keys to a sound retirement plan, and that is estate and legacy planning, which we have, our partner attorneys to set up the wills and living wills and power of attorneys for medical and financial directives. So a full suite of the estate planning documents that are needed, very inexpensive, incidentally. Beneficiary designation checks, that doesn't cost anything. Your estate plan doesn't have to be expensive, but it needs to be clean and straightforward. But we all need an estate and legacy plan. We all need a healthcare strategy. We don't know if we're going to get sick or need additional care in the future, whether it be at home or in an assisted living facility or a nursing home. But if that does arise, it's expensive. And for those of you listening that have maybe been involved in this, it's very costly. So we need a healthcare strategy. We need an investment strategy. We need an income plan, and we need to be tax efficient. And as we said through the show, Tony, if you have these 5 key areas covered in some form or fashion, everybody's situation's different, but these 5 keys are very universal. And I would just encourage you, come to one of the workshops or give our office a call, take advantage of this offer, and we're going to provide you these 5 key retirement plan ideas for you, customized for you in your own plan, and give you something tangible that you can compare and glean from and look at for your own retirement and your own security for your family.
All right, Anthony, sounds great. And that does it for today's episode of Retirement Keys with our host, Anthony Congemi. Thank you for listening to Retirement Keys. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, please contact Anthony Congemi at Crescent City Retirement Group. Call 504-828-2171 or visit the website at crescentcityretirement.com. All matters discussed during this show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. Anthony Congemi and Crescent City Retirement Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.